kind of a big deal, probably because he's like 6'10", right? You can't miss him in a crowd. Those that know me well know I always choose some amazing walk-up songs for our speakers. So James Reid, he is my get out of jail free legal counsel. He is the practice chair of the business and employment law division at Mann+Hauser. James is everywhere, practices in all 50 states. But he's kind of a renegade when it comes to helping us as employers navigate employment law issues and any other issues we run into. So, James, thank you. It's gonna get real.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be here, and I really want this to be interactive, but wait for the first few minutes because we're on Facebook Live, so nothing is attorney-client privilege until that's over with. And so in the interim, feel free to say, hypothetically, a friend of mine had this question, and we'll analyze it from there. But for those of you that don't know me well, I really am a numbers analytic geek. I pride how I was the AP Calculus teacher assistant in high school, and I was the 4th grade chess champion. So I still have the trophy at home, and I'm very proud of that. So today I'm going to bring out the geek in myself and really analyze numbers, and not only analyze numbers from a lawyer perspective, I want to do it from various perspectives, the plaintiff side, defense side, the neutral side, so all of us can understand the takeaways from these analytics. And in addition, I want to give everybody the tools to actually understand how to improve analytics in their own workplace. And without further ado, let's get into it. So, what percentage of people engage in discrimination? Anyone want to guess? It's definitely 100%, okay? Now, but I'm very careful in my words. We discriminate every single day. You had to decide, which speaker you're going to have to see later in a breakout session. You have to decide, which route you're going to take to come to work. You have to decide who you say good morning to at work. It's which coffee place do you stop by and have coffee in the morning. We all discriminate every single day, and 99% of our discrimination is necessary to have a better life and do good things. So discrimination is legal 99% of the time. And I think a lot of us hear this word discrimination and get a negative vibe. How many of you in your workplace have ever heard someone say they feel discriminated against, retaliated, harassed? All of these conclusions, and 99% of the time, they're for legal, justified, good reasons. Someone told me, hey, James, I feel discriminated against. My boss was rude to me and called me out and harassed me. I said, okay, let's peel back the onion. What happened here? Well, I was late 3 times this week to work. I forgot to call back a client. I had these errors on my report. Well, that's not discrimination. That's holding you accountable for performance. So on this chart, this is how I like to start every presentation I do. If you take away anything from today's presentation, take away this slide. Discrimination is necessary, ideal, and good for any reason, as long as it's not a reason to the left. So for any other reason, we need to do it. Our company will not survive if we're not rewarding the rock stars more than the underperformers. So let's kind of go over a few great stories to really understand the analytics of why 100% of us discriminate and why we need to remove the box to the left. And the reason why we need to remove the box to the left is nobody is ignorant enough anymore to be so blatant to say I'm discriminating against you because of a reason on the box to the left, but unconscious discrimination, saying unconsciously through statistics, analytics, showing that 90% of the time you only hire this particular class or exclude someone on the box to the left. That is how plaintiff attorneys are proving their case in this day and age. There is no more smoking gun, you're fired for your race, your religion, your gender. It's more unconscious or a statistic proven analysis. So for those of us who want to understand this box to the left, someone shout out one of the protected classes so I can share a brief story. Age. So what age is protected under the law? Anyone know? So a lot of people said 40 years of age or older. That is correct if you have a company with 20 or more employees and you're doing a federal law analysis. In Michigan, age is protected at any age. You could sue for being too young, discriminated against because you're in your 30s and not already a CEO despite your work performance. So it's actually any age in Michigan that most people do not know. Another category. Genetic information is my favorite one. So with analytics, a lot of people will be talking today about how to predict the future. And essentially, if you pull someone's hair sample or DNA, you could predict the future to see what percentage odds they are to have cancer or have dementia or have some genetic disability. And if you take any of that into account, you'd be violating GINA, the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, and you would be accountable. The most famous case involved a supplier to Kroger where someone defecated in the aisles at Kroger. And what occurred is the HR director said, I've seen forensic files. We can run that stool sample through the lab, then do a cotton swab of the saliva of all the employees on shift, find the match, and know who's guilty. What happened? There was a $2.5 million punitive fine for stealing an employee's genetic information. So do not do your own forensic file analysis in the workplace. That's the takeaway. But more subtle, if I was visiting my grandmother who has dementia, and someone at my company said, it looks like James has some genetic history of dementia in his family, maybe I don't want him to be the CEO because maybe when he's older, he'll have dementia too. That would also be illegal GINA discrimination. So it can be more subtle. Or if somebody is on FMLA or ADA and you find out what their diagnosis is, or you see what prescriptions they are taking, you could also conclude that maybe they have some genetic likelihood to have some health issue in the future, and that cannot be taken into account. What else? I heard veteran status and misdemeanor conviction. So veteran status, essentially, there's a law in Michigan, you're allowed to actually favor a veteran in the workplace, but you cannot have your unconscious bias that maybe they have PTSD and they're gonna be, and if I see them on Facebook hunting, I'm worried they're gonna have stress and come shoot up the place if I ever terminate them. You can't have any stereotype bias in the workplace. On the misdemeanor conviction, you cannot discriminate on misdemeanor arrest record because statistically, police officers may be engaging in discrimination because a majority of the people arrested as opposed to convicted are minorities. So to make sure that we're not allowing third-party discrimination to be taken into account, you can only take into account misdemeanor convictions. You actually can take into account felony arrests, but not misdemeanor arrests because of the disproportionate analytic impact on minorities. Anything else? Height. So I heard Tina Marie make a comment about me about 6'10" and made fun of my height. So if I was, trying to get a job somewhere and the owners were shorter than me and they felt intimidated by my height and didn't hire me because of that reason, that would be illegal discrimination, and vice versa. If you were too short, I was actually looking for jokes for the analytic conference today, and one of the jokes had two tall people and their boss was someone really short, and they said, welcome, here is your micromanager. So basically, if you're too short and there was a short joke, that would also be inappropriate because that can't be taken into account. So really the summary of the analytics conference is to basically only take into account work-related reasons, job performance, and doing great at your work. The reason why is many plaintiff attorneys, who I kind of classify as mostly evil for today's purposes, are essentially smart enough to spin anything that is not job related into one of the boxes on the left. So to give you an example,